guys, Ken here, your Thrifty Apprentice. Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to a special released video. So unfortunately this week, which should have been a 4-video week, I was supposed to have put out a video this past Thursday, which should have been an ephemera video, and I should have put out a video yesterday, which should have been a stick video of some sort, crayons, color pencils, watercolor pencils, pastels, you know, some stick form of media, as we tend to do on Fridays. And since I missed those, I figured I would kind of combine both of those and put out sort of a special release on today. So we're going to be painting together today, guys, and we are going to be having a sort of introductory look at watercolor crayons. We are going to be turning what we create with those crayons into a piece of ephemera. That way we essentially cover what should have gone on in both Thursday and Friday's video. So the first part of this video, you're going to get a watercolor crayon demo. And then immediately we'll be turning what we create in that demo into a really super quick piece of ephemera. And then to wrap this special video up, I am going to be using the latter part to create my very own DIY granulation watercolor palette. So we're sort of going to have an unboxing, panning, and maybe even a swatching. Maybe, I'm not sure. I may save the swatching in the painting demo for the granulation paints for another day. But essentially what I have here is some Van Gogh watercolors, and I have picked up all of their granulating colors. And we'll talk more about that when we actually get to that part of the video. So first things first, we're going to jump into a tutorial where we are going to be painting this landscape with watercolor crayons, using my Caran d'Ache watercolor crayons. This is the Neo Color 2 water soluble pastels, and I'm combining those with Faber-Castell 15 watercolor crayons, and this is actually their kids version. Now there is a review on the channel for these crayons if you want to go check it out. I have yet to review this set of crayons, though I've had it for years now, and I probably won't review these until I get the bigger set, because I really want the complete, like 80 to 84 colors. It's somewhere in that range. And then I'll swatch them out and do a review. But as for now, I'm just going to use them. Here I have a little palette which I'm going to be mixing on, and we'll talk about that more once we jump into the demo. This is the actual sample painting that I did with the watercolor crayons, but I felt like it was more of an intermediate composition, because you know, some people may not necessarily know how to draw all that well. So I decided that I would give it another shot and ended up creating this one, which I feel is more of a beginner sort of watercolor crayon 101 composition. Now, when it comes to watercolor crayons, you can use many different surfaces. Of course, watercolor implies that you can use watercolor paper. Me personally, I like using things that are a little bit smoother with a little bit less texture or sizing in it. So I'm going to be using a mixed media paper, which is Creative Mark Universal Pad. You guys hear me talking about that mixed media paper all the time. So enough talking. I've kind of introduced everything. Here's a little makeshift palette we're going to be putting together later. So for right now, let's just go ahead and jump into actually doing the watercolor crayon demo, where we'll paint this, and I will talk to you guys about some beginning watercolor crayon techniques that you may find helpful if you decide to use any type of water soluble pastel. As we get started, guys, I just want to take a minute and ask that you like the video, showing that you appreciate the free content. Don't forget to go ahead and subscribe, hit the notification bell, use the comment section, let me know if you've used watercolor crayons, and sharing is caring, so share the video. We're definitely trying to help the channel grow and build subscription. All right, as we get started here, guys, I'm going to throw a lot of information at you sort of fast, so buckle down and get ready. To start out, we are working with watercolor crayons. If you do not know what they are a water-soluble art product that looks just like a regular wax-based crayon that gives you watercolor paint effects when dissolved in water. They're made by many different companies at this particular point in time. The two companies that produce the ones I'm using in this video are Caran d'Ache and Faber-Castell. I'm using a makeshift palette here. Basically, it's a palette that I have taken and used sandpaper in order to abrade the surface. That's going to make it easier for it to grab the pigment from the watercolor crayons as I scribble it out on the palette in order to use it in a watercolor form and to turn it into washes to be added to the paper. Now, the Caran d'Ache is a professional grade and the Faber-Castell are student grade. Both of them happen to work together really well, which is why you see me using them in conjunction with each other. Now here you can see that I'm using a brush to mix two colors together. Just like most other water-soluble products, when you have a limited palette, you can't mix colors together in order to create new colors. When it comes to watercolor crayons, you want to keep in mind that they are an opaque product. So, although they give you watercolor paint effects, it's going to be more like an opaque watercolor or a gouache versus a traditional transparent watercolor. This makes layering them without having to lift what you put down previously a breeze. Something that you may have to get used to, but they're really great to work with. It's a creamy product. It's not hard or scratchy. It won't give you any fallout or debris. They will smudge, so do be careful with that. Now, what I'm painting on is mixed media paper. For watercolor crayons, I personally like a smooth or less toothy paper. If you paint on 140-pound cold pressed paper per se, or maybe a rough grade watercolor paper, you're going to have to use much more pigment in order to get a smoother result and to cover the area. Because those type of papers are going to have dents from the tooth, so you're going to have to put down more pigment. Personally, I like mixed media paper or Bristol board. Lindsay the Frugal Crafter uses them on top of a matting board like you use in your picture frames all the time. So you kind of have to find your feel for what you like using them on the most. Just know that they work on pretty much any surface. Yeah, they do. They really do. Now, up until this point, what you have seen me do is use ultramarine from the Caran d'Ache set, cobalt blue from the Faber-Castell set, ochre, which is yellow ochre from the Caran d'Ache set, and I used that in order to do the background. I scribbled them out on the palette. I took a golden Teflon synthetic brush, made washes out of them, and used it to do the background. Giving each layer that I do time to dry. After that, I moved on to doing the stars. Now, the stars and the moon was originally done with the white Caran d'Ache watercolor crayon. It is really opaque, and it's probably the color that you're going to use more times than none because it becomes important in your landscapes, in your portraits, in your still life, and your flowers when you're using watercolor crayons. I sprinkle stars in the background and I painted in the moon. Now, I am going to eventually go back in with Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White in order to cover that again. Now, that is the most opaque gouache I have ever seen. And like its name implies, it does not allow any other color to bleed through or seep through. It's not going to mix. Although you can mix it with your watercolors and your water-soluble products in order to tint it. It won't allow anything to bleed proof when you're using it to do your highlights. So, and I've noticed lately I like to use it in conjunction with black in order to paint, especially like the beginner landscapes, the silhouette landscapes. And I'm going to end up doing that here as well. So that's coming soon. Now, what you see me doing is using a golden Teflon brush, a flat one, in order to move the pigment around in the little river that I was painting. Now, this technique where I'm using it in like a watercolor paint form, you just scribble it out on the palette. You're going to add water to it to get it the consistency that you want it, and then you'll use it to paint with, just like you were using a paint from a half pan. In other instances, you're going to see me use the direct to paper technique. That's where I'm going to actually take the wax-based pastel and I'm going to be coloring directly onto the paper, adding the pigment into the area that I want it to be. Now, when you're using that direct to paper technique, that is definitely one time you want to try to control the water. The less water you have in that particular technique, the better. Because what you don't want to do is lift the pigment off the paper. And that tends to be the case if you use too much water in the direct to paper technique. However, if you scribble the watercolor crayon out on the palette first and add water to it, this technique, like paint, can then be added to the paper. So, and those are sort of the two main techniques that I typically use when it comes to watercolor crayons. Now, there are other ones, but those are the two main ones. Now here I'm just dispersing the pigment from the land masses that I drew into the water. I took that black Caran d'Ache crayon and I just kind of drew some triangle shaped land masses jetting out from the side of the paper. Of course, we know 3 is the charm, so I did 3 of them, and it created sort of this zigzag river, which is what I have been working on enhancing up until the point of doing the black for the land masses here. Now, let's be clear, the black from that Caran d'Ache set is opaque. It really, really is. But it's going to become even more opaque when I enhance it with the black from the Faber-Castell set. Now, I've heard it said by some other artists that they don't necessarily care for that Caran d'Ache, for the Faber-Castell classic watercolor crayons 15 count set. I like it. As a matter of fact, that's the set that I typically recommend to anybody who wants to kind of get their feet wet in watercolor crayons. You're not quite sure it's something that you're going to like, but you want to get a product that's going to give you, some nice quality just in case it is something you like and something that you want to continue with. Then as you progress and you grow, you can move up to a professional product, which off the top of my head, the 3 that I know of are the Caran d'Ache, which are the ones that I'm using, which comes in a range of up to like 80 colors. And I'm forcing myself to use this 15 plus 3 count that I have to kind of curve the want monster from buying the complete range, which I think I'm eventually going to get anyway. But I want to force myself to use these just to make it justifiable to replace them and buy the bigger set. Lyra makes a very comfortable set from what I understand. I've never used them, but Lindsay the Frugal Craft raves about them. Stettler, their professional carrot aquarette line, makes a watercolor crayon. There have been mixed reviews about them. I personally want to get them and use them because I like Stettler products. I think that they are very underrated for that to be such a well-known legacy company. Although it's from across seas, it doesn't make it, any less good than the products that we have right here or the ones that we're used to, legacy companies that we're used to hearing about. So I definitely want to try those Stellar ones. Now, at this particular point, what I have done is put in the land mask. I've covered it with the Caran d'Ache black. I've gone back in with the black from the Faber-Castell. And now I have done a mixture of the Caran d'Ache and the Faber-Castell blacks onto the palette and dissolved it with water. And I've taken a number 1 round Golden Tactile Synthetic All Media Zen brush by Royal and Langnickel. And I'm painting in some evergreen silhouettes here. I'm going to do 2 on the landmass farthest away from us. I'm going to put another one on the one coming closer to us. And then I'm going to put a couple of grass blade groupings kind of around the painting, which you really won't be able to see where they are until I go back in and start doing that highlighting with the Dr. P.H. Martin's bleed proof white. which will be coming up in just a very few moments. So as you can see, those blacks mixed together are super saturated. And watercolor crayons dry with a matte feel. They don't dry glossy or anything of that nature. I think they are an absolute wonderful product, dream to work with. Of the ones that I've used, the Caran d'Ache are my favorite so far. Like I said, I haven't tried all of the ones on the market, but I think I'm going to be hard pressed to find one that would beat the quality put forth by the Caran d'Ache. But definitely, if you want to get started and you've never used them, I would consider that 15 count of Faber-Castell Classics, because I think they are a great place to start. And you can start with something as simple as this. I wanted to do a really, really, really simple composition. I initially was going to do another one that had like light post in it and rolling hills and evergreens. And although they were silhouettes, it was a little bit more intermediate, complicated drawing. So I kind of dialed it back a bit, and just did this sort of three simple landmass painting, sort of along the lines of when we were talking about the beginner techniques with the watercolor pencils, because the watercolor crayons are actually really, really similar. The difference is you're working with a stick that is all media versus being encased in wood, which makes it so easy to turn that into paint from the shavings. But you can do that with the woodless watercolor pencils as well. So you don't necessarily have to have crayons to be doing this composition. You could be doing this with your watercolor pencils. You could be doing this with your watercolor paints. You could be doing this with your water-soluble oil pastels, or even your regular oil pastels for that matter. As long as you're painting, as long as you're working on a composition and practicing and pushing yourself, that's really all that matters. Now here, this is where I'm telling you, I went in and did all of the highlighting with the bleed proof white, put it some of everywhere, put it on the trees, put it on the landmass, put a little movement into the water just to give the composition a little bit more flow. Although I was going to be turning this into a piece of ephemera because I missed Thursday's video. So the reason this is folded in half is because I'm going to be cutting it into a journaling tag that can be written inside and on the back. So this is just a piece of mixed media paper folded in half so that I'll be able to pull off that effect. Now, after I highlighted everything, signed, and was done with the composition, I went in with a fine liner. That's a Creative Mark. Super black from Jerry's Autorama. Kind of missed at the top, so I'm going to have to put a little thicker border up there, which is why I grabbed the ruler, but it doesn't take away from anything, and it kind of adds to the fact that I'm turning it into a tag. But you guys just be careful if you decide to do the lining. Afterwards, I'm just going to go ahead and pull off the tape. Now, I'm going to tear my paper. This paper is susceptible to tearing pretty easy, and I knew that. So I should have used the trick of using a hair dryer or a heating tool to heat the tape to loosen the adhesive, to make it easier to pull the tape off without tearing the paper, even though I was pulling it at an angle. So those are just some things to think about when you get ready to remove the tape, which is what I'm about to do right here, to reveal that really, really pretty white border. I love those. Now, if you have a block of paper that you want to paint on, you can always do these compositions on a block and paint all the way out to the end and not have to worry about taping the paper down. So next, I'm going to jump into turning this cute little painting into a journaling tag. As you can see, it opens there. So I'm going to grab a pre-made tag, cut off the top. So let's jump into doing that. If you wanted to, you could just simply use this as a journaling card, right? It could actually be a greeting card that you have now made. All you have to do is put your sentiment on the inside, or decorate the inside if you want to. It could become a folio. You could decorate the inside and put pockets in to hold other tags, other journaling cards, and ephemera. You can make it a loaded folio. That would be cute. I'm actually going to leave it as a journaling spot, but I'm going to make it a tag. So all I need to do is stick my little tag template on here because I don't want the corners to be too big, but I do want you to be able to see that it's a tag. So I am just going to cut off corners here. And flip that over on the other side. Again, I don't want to lose a lot of the white real estate. I want to keep as much of it as I possibly can. So basically, this is just me again showing you how you can turn your regular everyday painting or even your practice painting into, I'm just rounding those corners with a corner rounder. And there you have it. You could have just rounded the corners at the top, but I like the whole tag feel. I'm probably going to end up putting a hole right there in the black border. And there I have plenty of journaling space. This can be inserted into a pocket of a junk or art journal. It can fit across a page. You can actually adhere it into your journals on a page or on a cover. Again, you can put pockets, turn it into a folio, put little pockets down here, stuff things in. So a lot of different ways. So there's the really quick, simple ephemera idea. Well, I hope you guys try this, especially if you have watercolor crayons, regardless of what brand they may be, whether they're like the Sargent Art or the Faber-Castell or the Caran d'Ache, which Caran d'Ache are my favorite. But give this a try. You could also try with like gelatos, or you maybe could try this with like your water-soluble oil pastels. I have some here by Mungio. And I reckon they could be done with this. You can even use these to enhance your watercolor crayon picture because you can use the oil on top of the water media after it has dried. So you may want to think about doing something like that to enhance it. Okay, so I've inked around the edges and I punched a little hole just in the front part of the tag because I don't want it to go through the back, because if you put it through the topper all the way through, it'll close it up. So I just have a few pieces of embroidery floss here, just a really simple topper. I got a couple of pieces of blue, I got a couple of pieces of black, and then I have one string of white to add into it. I'm gonna grab all those, get them straight, and then I'm going to try to feed that through this little hole. There we have really simple ephemera tag. I mean, you may want to trim it down a little bit more. I don't know. I think I'm going to kind of leave it like it is. It'll be cute sticking up at the top of something. So now that we've got the ephemera part done, let's go ahead and move into actually panning our granulating palette. This should be exciting. For this part of the video, we are going to be taking a look at and panning a granulating watercolor set that I've put together. Now, I've been watching a lot of videos on granulating watercolors, and I know I'm kind of late to the party on this, but I really like the way that they look. I've done some searching around on the internet, sites like Amazon, Jerry's, Blick, looking for granulating sets. And the ones that I see that are, especially the popular ones like Supervision and, or maybe like Daniel Smith, they are, you know, they're kind of pricey. So I did a little bit more digging and came across Van Gogh by Royal Talons, which I'm familiar with the line, but I wasn't aware that they had so many granulating watercolors in the Van Gogh line. So I was in Joann's, and lo and behold, they were selling the Van Gogh tubes open stock. So I saw this as the perfect opportunity, on top of the fact that I had like 2 coupons I could use. So I knew that it would be much more budget friendly for me to get them there under this line versus trying to buy them off like Amazon or the internet, buying like Supervision or Daniel Smith or those other granulating watercolors. With that said, I Googled which colors granulated and I bought each one of them. There were 8 of them from the Van Gogh line that granulated. I looked at the color range, and the one thing that was definitely missing was a blue or granulating blue. I automatically thought of ultramarine. PB29 is a granulating pigment in more cases than none, whether it's super granulating or just granulates a little bit. Really depends on the brand and what they did to their particular ultramarine blue. So with that said, I settled on Soho ultramarine blue. Now Soho is a house brand by Jerry's Autorama. They used to make a line called Soho Urban Artist Watercolor. I happened to get some tubes in a care package that was sent to me by Miss Diane Zimmerman from Watercolors Beginner and Beyond.com, if I'm not mistaken. And I tested the paints. There's actually a review for the Soho tube paints. Now they're discontinued, and if you find them, it's going to be from a secondhand type place. You may find somebody that still has some tubes. But since I had some in back stock, I was using them. I decided that I would grab the ultramarine blue from the few tubes that I had, because I know that that one does granulate quite well actually. So this is sort of an unboxing. We're going to take a look at them and we're going to go ahead and get them panned up. This is a Mead Academy palette. Came with some really budget watercolors in it that really weren't any good at all. I've long since thrown those watercolors away. And I've been using the palette over and over, and I felt like this will be perfect for what I'm doing. The whole point is to create a separate granulating palette that I could use with different sets of watercolors if I chose to. Due to the fact that I'm really into landscape watercolor painting, granulating watercolor palette is really going to add to my painting, I really believe so. So let's get started. Somewhat of a rainbow watercolor here. So first out the gate we have, again, this is the Van Gogh line. Let's see, where is it made? This is Royal Talens. They are, I do believe, the Netherlands, made in the Netherlands. Okay, so this is Dusk Pink. Oh, my vision is terrible. Yeah, this is Dusk Pink. It looks like it has light fast information. Look like there is transparency stamp. So we have a stock number. It says Van Gogh watercolor on the back here. We do have pigment information. So Dusk Pink, which is one of their granulating colors, is made up of PBK 11 and PV 19. Now, of course, by the time I get around to reviewing this, we will definitely have information on all of the pigment makeup. This is Series 1, Light Fast 3. This is a 10 milliliter tube. It does have the AP stamp of approval, so it is classified as non-toxic. And it looks like the recycle symbol. This is a metal tube. It has a screw on top. Comes off pretty easily. There is no foil covering the paint, no puncturing, so it's definitely not one of those cheap like medicine ornament tubes. So let's shake this baby up. And get some panned here. These are some pretty nice tubes here. Just gonna eye filling it about a third of the way. I want to give these time to dry down once I get them panned up. And then we'll probably do a swatching and a painting demo in another video. So next up we have dusk yellow. Looks like +3. Now that said +2 here, but it says light fast is 1, 2, 3. Light fast on this one is 2. I wonder if that's a misprint. Light fast on this one is 2, but there's 3. Okay, so I'm gonna have to check the site to see what the plus signs stand for. So yeah, the next one was the dusk yellow. It's made up of pigment PBK11 and PY128 series 1, light fast 2. So I'm assuming that dusk pink is, let me see. Let me look at the burnt umber. Let's see. It is light fast 1. So 1 must be the most light fast. Let's see about the black. Light fast 1. Okay, yeah. So 1 must be permanent. 2 must be semi-permanent. And 3 must be fugitive. Permanent to fugitive. Okay, so yeah. All right. Let's get this one in the pan. Oh, that's an interesting color to come out like that for a yellow. Oh, these are going to be so much fun to paint with. I already know. And I mean, I'm going to augment it with another palette. I'm going to use it alongside another palette. This is turquoise. So it has on the front 3 plus signs. Again, not sure what that means. It looks to be transparent. And it is made up of pigment PB15 and PB29. All right. Series 1, light fast 1. Let's see here. So far, no pigment and, spoke too soon. That one definitely has pigment and binder separation. Quite a bit of it. I'm gonna have to stir that up. I'll stir that up in just a second. Moving on. Next we have dusk green. Semi-transparent. Has 3 plus signs there. Pigment PBK11 and PG7 series 1, light fast 1. So really shake that up. So we have one that had a little pigment binder separation issue. This one seems to be okay. All right, next is the Soho Artist Watercolor. Now this one is PB29 Ultramarine Blue. This is their light fast rating 1, which I do believe was their highest light fast rating for permanent. This was produced out of Raleigh, North Carolina. But again, this particular line is no longer produced. I think they do have like they call it a Soho Easy Lift palette. And I just put that in there just in case I'm only painting with this palette, which probably won't ever be the case, but just in case. Next up, Dust Violet, 2 plus sign, semi-transparent. Pigment makeup is PBK11 and PV23, series 1, light fast 4. Oh, wait. So we have another. Okay, scratch what I said about the light fast. Something else we're going to have to check. Looks like it is more than a 3-step scale. So I wonder what 4 is. Yeah, so we're definitely going to have to check these out. I'm going to check the site and all that good stuff. Next up is Burnt Umber 3 plus signs transparent. Pigment makeup is PBR7 series 1, light fast 1. I still want to say. Oh, so, well, 4 must be super fugitive. 3 must be fugitive. Well, I'll be. That is interesting. So that Dust Violet must be a really fugitive color. Next up is Davies Gray, plus sign 3, semi-transparent. It is PB, what is that? PBK11, PG7, and PBR7, Series 1, Light Fast 1. So far, the turquoise green was the only one that gave us any binder pigment issues. I'm gonna run and grab a toothpick to mix that up in just a second. And last but not least, we have Oxide Black, 3+, semi-transparent. It is PBK11, Series 1, Light Fast 1. All right. And there was a little blue from, I think, Aim High Arts in there. But that black is definitely going to overtake all of that. So let me grab a toothpick. Let's see. I'm going to mix that up. That's a lot of binder and a very little pigment, guys, for real. All of the pigment must still be in the tube. Okay, I had to add some more pigment to that. Now let's see if I can get that mixed up a little better. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, it is what it is on that. I hope that paints out okay. I may have to repan it. There's no way for me to put that back in a tube. I may have to put another pan together for that, but I'll do that off camera. So guys, there you have it. I just wanted to share panning up this granulating palette, share what the colors and pigment makeup are. You'll see them in use over time. And eventually there will be a review that comes out on this particular line and these particular colors. So hopefully you guys have liked the things that I put together in this little surprise video. If there was anything throughout the course of this video that you found helpful, that you liked, or just because you want to show appreciation for the time put into the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Use the comment section. Let me know, have you used watercolor crayons? What brand? What was your experience with them? If you haven't used them, did this video pique your interest in them? You know, let me know those type things. Let me know what you've painted with them. Let me know if you've used any granulating colors. Have you tried any of these Van Gogh granulating colors? How did they work for you? Hopefully this little one that had this issue with the separation will be okay. I'm gonna let it dry down a little over a couple of days and then probably put some more pigment on it and mix it up some more. Share the video. Sharing is caring. Guys, I'm really trying to grow the channel. I'm trying to get a wider, broader audience. So it's gonna really help when you like the video, when you subscribe if you haven't subscribed, when you share the video. And of course, I'm greatly appreciate any help that you guys give me. And I don't want to sound like I'm begging, but I'm just telling the truth about how the algorithm works, you know. Check out the video description. You are going to find links for a lot of different things. I'm going to link the review for the Faber-Castell 15 count watercolor crayons, just in case you guys are interested in that. You can find a link for the most recommended products from the Thrifty Apprentice Studios. There's a link for the Etsy shop in case anybody's interested in that. And there's also a link for paints, pencils, pastels, and markers, which is a Thrifty Apprentice sponsored Facebook group where we welcome anybody who is artsy or crafty, because as you guys know, this is both a art and craft channel. I do both art things as well as craft things. So all right, that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy your Saturday, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the regular Sunday video release. And like I tell you at the end of every single video, just keep painting and crafting.